Okay, so we're going to do some hands now. So we've covered pretty much everything else, everything except for hands and feet. So we're going to start with hands because hands are a lot more complicated to draw than feet, but essentially the same kind of anatomy. So what I have here is just a quick sketch of a hand that I did, and I'm just going to break it down. So let's grab a red, and let's chuck in some bones here. So we have knuckles across here, and then we have bones that come down like this. Okay, so although this here is when you're looking at it, it's a nice solid shape, underneath that there are multiple bones. Okay, so this is where the wrist is here, and the other thing that you might think is the thumb comes in like this, but it does not. The thumb comes down like that, and it rotates independently. Okay, something to keep in mind when you're drawing different hand positions. Okay, so then from this position here we have the bones come out. So I have a bone here and a bone here like this. The thumb is different to the fingers in that it essentially only has 2 bones, or 3 bones, 1, 2, 3, whereas the fingers have 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so when we have a skeleton, that is essentially what we're looking at. Now that to you probably doesn't really look a whole lot like a hand, like a human hand, because you're missing all the fleshy bits. So how do we simplify this now to draw it? So what I might do is I might move this guy over to here, and let's let's go through and try and simplify this hand a bit. So the fingers are pretty simple to simplify. I mean, they're essentially cylinders. You could do them as multiple cylinders, or you could do them as one cylinder, but they're essentially cylinders. Okay, same with the thumb here. Now the hand itself can be represented as a cube or a square. And I like to, when I do it, put circles here for the knuckles, just so I can see where they're coming out. Sometimes I'll do multiple cylinders, sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll, depending on how bent the finger is, I'll do 3, and other times I'll just do the 2. Okay, I'll explain a nice simple way to do this in a minute. For now, we'll just get these basic shapes in here so you can see them. And of course, this is where it would attach to the cylinder arm. Okay. So, I mean, really it's not that complicated, okay? Once you know the bones, drawing the basic hand is, you know, pretty simple in this aspect here, okay? And of course, we know how to draw shapes in 3 dimensions, you know, so we know how to get this hand, you know, for example, coming towards us. So if we were to do the mass of the hand first, and this is just going to be quick and dirty, so my perspective might be off a little bit, but I'm sure you can forgive me for that. And then we do some fingers. You know, and then we'd clean this up, obviously. What I'll do is, because I don't want to cover up the process that I'm doing, so I'll just, for now, just draw over the top of it. And there we essentially have a hand in perspective. Now there's a few issues here with this hand which I haven't touched on yet, because we've only done the back of the hand so far, or we're part way through doing the back of the hand. So I don't want to jump too far ahead, but we'll have a thumb pad here in our front of our hand. Will look something like that. Okay, so I'm just going to it's a very, very quick and dirty hand. So I'm just going to merge these layers down. I don't need them anymore. Okay, so the back of the hand here. When we get to this stage, what do we need to show? What do we need to represent to get to this stage? Well, the first 2 knuckles, 1 and 2, are larger and more pronounced. So for most people, we'd want to indicate those. Now, more feminine hands, softer hands, don't have as pronounced knuckles. That's something to keep in mind as well. And the fingers would be, you know, a bit more slim like so. So keep that in mind. But generally speaking, you want to represent these two knuckles. Now how you represent them, the shapes you choose to represent them, completely up to you. And then depending on the hand position, what you will probably want to indicate is some of the bones. Okay, you don't need to get here and go like this and do every single bone, but just an indication that there are bones under there. And depending again on the hand and the character, you know, if it's a masculine character or a character that's working hard, you know, you might even want to indicate some veins across the hands, okay, because the hands are very veiny. So key points are first two knuckles, and then indicate bones. You don't, and again, you don't have to draw all the bones, just indicate them, show a hint of them, okay? Now on the inside of the hand, what we have is this. And this will vary depending on the person to a certain extent. And let's just chuck in some appendages so that we know what we're doing. So a huge mistake I just made with this hand is the proportions of it. So what we need to do to fix that is we'll take these guys, you can already see that there makes it a lot better. And what I'll probably do, yeah, we'll take the whole thing, spend it out just a little bit like that. And then what we would have is we'd have some joins where it bends. Across like that. Alright, so let's get in here with a red pen. Important thing is the thumb pad. Okay, because how this hand moves, you know, will determine the position the thumb pad's in, will determine a great deal about what the character is holding or not holding, you know, etc, etc. Okay, so that's an important one. The next important one is this one on the side here, and that's important because it will help you show the rotation of the hand. Okay, and then this is essentially, the knuckles would be back there, so this is essentially where we get the bend in the hand if we were to bend the fingers over. What I mean by that is, if this was on the side, So this part here matches up with the bottom of the knuckles, like that. So what will happen is, as we bend the hand over, let's just indicate this a bit better. Yep. What we're going to get is this. And then of course the knuckles would bend again. And then again to curl that over. Okay. So that's this part here, this part here. Now this side-on hand is a good example of what I mean by this part and this part just determining the rotation. So if I draw a hand with the thumb closer, and again these are just quick rough hands, so we won't stress about them too much being too accurate or what have you. But the thumb is closer, so what's going to happen is we're going to have this thumb pad like this. What I might do is extend that thumb up a bit. It's a bit stubby, and we'll just clean this up real quick. Now this thumb pad is helping to determine, as well as obviously the overlap of the fingers here, is helping to determine that the hand is turned so the thumb is facing us. If we were to turn it the other direction, the other thing that, sorry, don't want to get ahead of myself here, the other thing that helps determine that is the thumbnails, where you place them and the angle you draw them on. So keep that in mind as well. So if I was to turn the hand the other way so that the thumb was facing away from us and the little finger was closest, what we'd get is this little finger here would come down into this part here. We get that part pronounced the most. Okay. And again, our fingers, the overlap with our fingers does help with that a lot. But the fleshy part of the palm is really necessary for us to get it to convey the idea correctly. Okay? Alright, so the last point I want to touch on with these is something that we're going to get into in a minute, a bit more in depth, and that is gesture drawing. So I would not, I'll just merge some of these down, I would essentially not do this step here. Okay, hands are small. I mean, if the hand was taking up most of the image that I was drawing, then I probably would do this step here. But if you're drawing a full figure, the hands are smaller and don't take up as much of it, so it's a lot easier to do gesture drawing. Now, what is gesture drawing? Basically, I'm taking the hand and I'm just estimating where things would be. I just want to get the feel. And it doesn't have to be accurate. Gesture drawing is just getting the shapes in here. And you can see there, that is a much faster way of blocking in the hands. Now from this image, we'd have to go in and clean it up, maybe add our cylinders in and stuff like that. I'll just do another one just to give you an idea. Let's do a couple more. So first we'll do a hand coming towards us. And again, all I'm looking for is to convey the feeling of what I want, which in this case would be the hand stretching out. Not worrying about the details or even if it's in proportion or anything like that yet, just the feeling. And we'll touch on gesture drawing in a minute, but it's just a quick overview. And the next one I'll do is probably chuck a fist in here, hey? You can see the benefits of doing this, you know. That's pretty rough, but that's going to be a lot, a simple job to clean up, okay? Now, obviously, for you to be able to do these gesture drawings, you need to have a good comprehension of muscle structure and bone structure of the hand, because if you don't know that, you're not going to know how to clean these up, basically. I mean, you can look at hands, and if you draw lots of hands, you know, you get a general idea, or if you're good at visualizing, or you're using a reference picture, you get a good idea of what you want it to look like. You know, you can draw your gesture really quick. I mean, that's a symbol that everybody, I think, can draw. But if you don't have the anatomy, you know, especially when you're doing something like these two here, you're not going to be able to clean them up to a professional standard. Okay, so we're going to finish this lesson here, and we'll come back in the next lesson and go on to feet.